Hey, today I'm talking about 3 films featuring one of my all-time favorite actors, Imogen Poots. And the names of those 3 films are The Look of Love, Comes a Bright Day, and Filth. First up is The Look of Love. This is a 2013 film about the life of Paul Raymond, the controversial entrepreneur who became Britain's richest man. It stars Steve Coogan and also features Anna Farrell. And it's surprisingly really good. It was just an interesting story told really well. There was a lot of nudity, almost an absurd amount, but it technically made sense for the story because, like, the dude sleeps with a lot of his employees and he also works, amongst other things, at strip clubs. Well, it's fancier strip clubs. So, like, it makes sense to just be lots of topless women doing things at times. It is ridiculous, especially in the beginning, because it was like, well, the very beginning is almost like every other shot. There were some boobs, but then eventually slowed down to just like every other scene, and eventually slowed down to less. But that's not the reason why I really liked it. I just thought it was a well-acted, well-told story, and it was an interesting story and engaging. Imogen gave a really, really good performance. She kind of doesn't come in till later, but once she's there, she really commands the screen. She's such a talented actor. But don't get me wrong, Steve does a great job too, and so does Anna. I particularly liked her in this. I'm a big fan of her from Pushing Daisies, so I always love whenever I come across one of her films. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, and I would definitely recommend it. Unless you prefer to not see naked women, then you should definitely not watch this movie, because it's a lot. Like, you can't really watch this movie without witnessing a bunch of women be naked. So yeah, it's really good. Just a lot of female nudity. Next up is Comes a Bright Day. This is a 2012 film, and the basic premise is there is this maybe 20-year-old guy who wants to be an entrepreneur, so he's doing his best to hustle, and he gets sent on an errand to go to this jewelry place, but wouldn't you know it, they get robbed. And it's okay. It really just is a very run-of-the-mill, generic hostage movie. They really hit all of the beats that you expect. And like, I did find the characters kind of interesting at times, but it wasn't good writing. Like, the villains were stupid. Like, they were more stupid than the intended extent of their stupidity. It was just poor writing. Like, for instance, I'm gonna spoil the beginning of the robbery. So like, the shop has one of the buzzers to let customers in, and the guys come in fully with the masks on and guns ablazing. So like, the shop owner would have seen that shit either through the glass door or in the security camera that should be right there, because they have a buzzer to let people in, and usually that entails also having a security camera because you want that extra layer of security because there's over $1 million worth of product in this place. But let's just say he wasn't paying attention. Sure, okay, it's fine, I guess. So they come in, and the bad guys just immediately start pointing the guns right at their faces and just start yelling. They don't grab anything, they're just yelling. And everything just gets escalated. Like, everyone doesn't care that there's guns in their faces, they're just gonna be loud. And eventually it explodes into one of the bad guys killing an old lady. Okay, so then they decide to run out of the store, not having grabbed anything. They just leave the store having just come in and murdered a lady. Well, then they shoot a bunch of cops and then come back into the store. Remember, it's locked, so who knows how they got back inside. And then from there, they decide to not immediately tie up everyone. There's a good like 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour before they do eventually decide to tie up their hostages. But in the meantime, they leave the room several times to like go have conversations. Like, both of the bad guys go to a different room and leave all of their untied hostages in a room to just do whatever they want. And they legit just kind of walk around, meander, talk, whatever. They don't try to escape until much later in the film. But then even like when the guys are in the room pointing guns at them, everyone will just yell at the robbers. Like, they're not threatening to kill them, even though they just proved to us that they will randomly kill people willy-nilly. So everyone's just being dumb because they should be acting afraid instead of yelling, because the bad guys are intimidated, but they don't because reasons. Okay, I'm complaining a lot, but I didn't put this movie in the didn't like section. I ended up putting it in the meh section, and that's because there were moments that I liked. Imogen does a really good job, and I did find the main character kind of interesting. He's definitely a bit of a twat, but it's fine. There were bits I found interesting. So yeah, I didn't dislike it, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's pretty forgettable and nothing to write home about. And lastly is Filth. This is a 2013 film starring James McAvoy, and I fucking hate this movie. It is so bad. So the basic premise is this incredibly racist, misogynistic, just general asshole of a cop is really depressed. So he uses his depression as fuel to just do terrible things to literally everyone the entire movie. And it's not good. Like, it's a tricky thing to have your main character be an unlikable person, and they didn't do a good job with it, because literally all they have him do is just be an asshole to everyone all the time. That's his entire character. And like, that's not fun to watch, that's not interesting to watch, that's just bad and dumb and terrible. It did get a little interesting at the end because they revealed a little bit more, but I don't think that was handled well. This is based off a book, and I think the writer of the book is trying his damnedest to be Chuck Palahniuk. In particular, this reminded me a lot of Choke, especially because the main character of this is a sex addict, which, if you're unfamiliar with Choke, which you should read, is about a sex addict and is actually good from what I recall. I haven't read it since high school, but I think it's still good. It's probably better than this noise. What I find interesting though is its IMDb rating. IMDb ratings, if you're unfamiliar, are trash. Don't use them as a metric for the quality of goodness, because if it has like a rating below 5, that usually means that a non-white person is the lead, or a woman is the lead, or has something to do with feminism or racism. Generally though, most movies are between like 5 and 7-ish. If it does hit 7, that is interesting and means that it's either resonating with people or it doesn't have anything for misogynists or racists to hate on. And since this movie features a huge misogynistic racist, that means that people really resonated with this film. Why? Because even though he's a terrible person, they probably see something in him in themselves. So that's fun. Would I recommend this movie? No, it's terrible. This is such trash. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got The Look of Love sitting at number 47 in the really like section. And then after that, we got Comes a Bright Day sitting at number 102 in the meh section. And then bringing up the rear, rightfully fucking so, is Filth sitting at number 111 in the didn't like section. And this is out of a total of 117 old movies so far this year.